welcome to today's deep dive. So we're heading back to New York City, specifically the early 2000s. And the mission for this deep dive is to unpack the booming cosmetic medical industry of that time by, well, looking at a really shocking true crime story.
Yeah, it is. It's a wild one. We're pulling from some great investigative articles, an ABC 2020 special, and some historical profiles to really get into this.
Right. And to start, we have these two central figures. And honestly, their paths should never have crossed. First, you have Maria Cruz.
Okay, yeah. Maria is 35 years old, a Filipina immigrant who got her MBA from Fordham.
Which is huge.
Oh, absolutely. She's making over $200,000 a year as an investment banker at Barclays. And all the profiles describe her as, like, incredibly meticulous, very cautious.
Yeah, the kind of person who literally never misses a day of work.
Exactly. So she's not a risk taker.
Right. And then on the completely opposite end of the spectrum, you have Dean Fiello.
Oh, Dean.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was voted most likely to succeed in his high school. He's this very charismatic, handsome guy operating a high-end laser clinic right on Park Avenue.
Right, catering to wealthy socialites, Broadway stars, that whole crowd. So I guess the inciting question for this deep dive is, how does an incredibly smart, cautious Wall Street banker cross paths with this charming society doctor, and I'm using doctor in air quotes there, with such devastating consequences?
Well, to really get that, you have to understand the culture back then. In the late 90s and early 2000s, there was just this absolute frenzy for cosmetic
The
procedures.
med spa boom.
Exactly. The technology, especially laser hair removal and skin treatments, it was all so new. And it was advancing way faster than state regulations could keep up with.
It was kind of the Wild West.
It really was. I mean, the demand was astronomical. Money is just flowing everywhere, and oversight is practically non-existent. So it created this environment where if you had enough confidence and some cash, you could just open a clinic.
Which brings us to how Dean Fiello actually built his house of cards. Because, well, he wasn't a doctor at all.
No, not even close. He actually dropped out of college, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, I think, after his sophomore year.
Wow.
Yeah. He spent years working in construction, and eventually he learned some basic laser hair removal.
Okay, but jumping from construction to running a Park Avenue medical spa is wild. It's like dressing up in a pilot's uniform, walking onto a jumbo jet, and someone just handing you the controls because you look the part.
That is exactly what it was. He realized the money was incredibly easy, so he just leveraged his good looks and his charm, and he opened his own place, Skinovations.
But wait, if he didn't have a medical degree, why didn't his wealthy clients notice? I mean, these are
Yeah.
highly educated people.
Because he looked and acted the part perfectly. He had the expensive equipment, the heavy glass doors, the perfect location. I mean, he wore a crisp white coat.
So they just assumed.
Right. People trusted the aesthetics of the clinic way more than they bothered to check for actual medical credentials. If you're on Park Avenue, people just assume you're supposed to be there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Maria Cruz is dealing with this really frustrating but totally harmless cosmetic thing. It's called black hairy tongue.
Which sounds terrifying, but it's really not.
Right, it's totally benign.
Mm-hmm.
But she was desperate for a permanent fix. So she starts looking into laser treatments, and that is what brings her directly to Dean's clinic.
But the thing is, right when Maria's seeking him out, Dean's whole facade is actually crumbling.
Yeah, the danger level was escalating fast. Because he wasn't just a fake doctor, he was living this crazy double life.
Very destructive. By day, he's this white coat professional. But by night, he is deep, deep into the underground club scene. And he developed a really severe substance abuse problem.
Right, he was addicted to butorphanol, which it's a really potent opioid nasal spray.
Extremely potent. And because it was a nasal spray, he could use it secretly all day long without any obvious track marks.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, but his tolerance kept growing. Eventually, he's forging prescriptions just to get it. He actually got caught doing that in 1998, but he basically got a slap on the wrist. Just probation.
So he just keeps operating.
Yeah.
But the walls do start closing in, right? Because in October 2002, the New York Post drops a massive bombshell expose,
Oh, yeah. The headline was, "He'll make your skin crawl."
which is a great headline, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it totally outs him. It reveals he has no medical license. So he gets arrested, but he bails out for $5,000.
And crucially, he is legally ordered by a judge to stop treating patients immediately.
But of course he doesn't.
No, he's drowning in debt. He has this massive opioid addiction that needs cash every day. So instead of stopping, he moves the whole practice underground.
To his secret apartment clinic.
Exactly, on West 16th Street. And he tells his clients it's cash only now, which sets up this incredibly dangerous situation where he has zero safety nets, no staff, no emergency equipment, nothing.
Which is terrifying. And that brings us to the climax here, the fatal appointment. It's Sunday, April 13th, 2003.
Right.
Maria, who still totally trusts him, shows up at this apartment with $400 in cash for her treatment.
And we know from his own admissions later that Dean is in a terrible state. He is both high and drunk that morning.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So he starts the procedure, which means he has to numb her tongue. He starts injecting multiple vials of lidocaine into Maria.
Just a standard numbing agent, but he uses way too much, right?
Way too much. And because he's not a real doctor, he completely misses the warning signs of a severe allergic reaction.
Toxicity.
Yes, systemic toxicity. The lidocaine gets into her bloodstream. Maria goes into intense convulsions. She starts foaming at the mouth, and then she just goes completely limp.
Wait, so he has a massive medical emergency on his hands right there on the table? What does he do?
Well, he panics. He actually picks up the phone and calls an actual doctor, a friend of his who is an ER director at NYU.
Okay, and what does the ER director say?
He explicitly tells Dean, "This is life-threatening. You need to call 911 immediately."
Get an ambulance?
Yes. But Dean is terrified. If he calls paramedics to his secret illegal clinic, he goes straight to prison. So he makes the ultimate selfish choice.
He doesn't call 911.
No,
Yeah.
he just stands there and watches her die.
That is just, it's sickening.
Mm-hmm.
And so, having chosen self-preservation, he now has to hide a body.
Which is a whole other nightmare.
Right. And because Maria is so petite, I think she was under 90 pounds, Dean literally stuffs her body into a black suitcase. A suitcase he had actually stolen from someone else.
It's just so grim.
It really is. He puts the suitcase in the trunk of his car, drives to this house he owns in Newark, New Jersey, and just leaves her in the trunk for days.
Just sitting there while he tries to figure out what to do.
Exactly. Eventually, he decides to bury the suitcase in his garage. It had a dirt floor, so he digs a hole, buries her, and pours a heavy concrete slab over the whole thing.
And then he literally sells that house to a new family for $450,000 shortly after.
Yeah. Which is insane. But meanwhile, back in Manhattan, people are noticing Maria is gone. I mean, she never missed work.
Right. Her coworkers at Barclays are immediately suspicious. Newspapers are piling up at her door.
But you'd think the police would find her quickly, right? Like, check her bank records, see where she went.
You would think so.
Right.
But the NYPD was completely overwhelmed at the time. There were over 18,400 missing persons cases reported in New York in just the first 4 months of that year.
Wait, 18,000 in 4 months.
Yeah, the volume was staggering. So Maria's case is just a needle in a haystack. And because Dean demanded cash and the clinic was off the books, there was no obvious paper trail to that apartment.
So Dean actually has a head start.
Yeah.
And he uses the money from selling the Newark house to completely flee the country.
He flies to Costa Rica, and he doesn't lay low either.
Not at all. He goes to a beachfront resort. He later called it a period of pure hedonism. He's just drinking poolside, handing out $100 tips to the staff, just living it up.
Well, Maria's family is desperately searching for her. But, you can't outrun a secret buried under concrete forever.
The house of cards finally collapses. How does he actually get caught?
It was his ex-boyfriend, Greg Back. Greg starts connecting the dots. He remembers Dean acting incredibly secretive and aggressively pouring concrete in that Newark garage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was right around the exact time Maria's missing person posters started going up all over the city.
So the timeline matches perfectly.
Exactly. So Greg tips off the police.
Thank goodness. So in February 2004, authorities get a warrant, they dig up the garage, and they find the suitcase.
And as soon as they identify the body, they track Dean's money straight to Costa Rica. Local police just walk right into the resort and arrest him by the swimming pool.
But this is where the story gets almost absurd. Because Dean tries to fight extradition, right?
Oh, it is one of the most bizarre legal defenses ever. Costa Rica doesn't extradite its own citizens. So Dean actually petitions a local court to let his Costa Rican landlords legally adopt him.
Wait, really? He tried to get adopted.
Yes. He thought if he got adopted, he'd get citizenship and avoid extradition.
But wait, how old were the landlords?
The judge threw it out immediately, specifically noting that the child being adopted, Dean, was chronologically older than the parents.
That is ridiculous. I can't believe a lawyer even filed that.
Desperation, I guess. But it didn't work. He's extradited back to the U.S., and facing a mountain of evidence, he pleads guilty to first-degree assault in 2006 just to avoid a murder trial.
Right. And the judge at his sentencing was having none of his apologies, called him heartless and the crime depraved. So he gets sentenced to 20 years in prison.
He serves his time, actually becomes a Quaker in prison, and then he gets paroled in 2022.
But he didn't enjoy his freedom for very long. Just a couple of years later, in January 2024, Dean dies in a severe car crash.
Yeah, it's a very abrupt end to a really dark story.
It really is. And, tying this all back to you listening right now, the medical spa industry hasn't shrunk since 2003. It has exploded
Oh, it's everywhere now.
everywhere. And this tragic story of Maria Cruz is just a really stark reminder for all of us. A beautiful office, an expensive laser machine, a really charming smile. None of that equals actual medical expertise. You always have to verify credentials.
Absolutely. It leaves you with a pretty chilling final thought, really. If a high school dropout could run an illegal, high-end medical practice for 7 years right in the middle of Manhattan while battling a severe drug addiction,
Yeah.
how many other experts are operating just under the radar right now, protected by absolutely nothing but their own confidence?
It makes you think twice before booking your next appointment, that's for sure. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.